All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm back here with Chris Piazza, who works on the Legion marketing side. Chris, how you doing today, man?
Doing great. Doing great, Larry.
Awesome. Thanks for jumping on here. Appreciate it. Do you mind giving a quick intro for people on you and your role within Legion?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Chris Piazza, and I lead global product marketing for Lenovo Legion and our lock sub-brand. So basically anything on the notebook, desktop, tablet, handheld, like just go down the list. If it's product marketing and it's getting the word out and it's launching the product, that's
Awesome. So how have you been involved so far in this product launch, for example?
heavily involved. Yeah, whenever we kick off a product, any device that we kick off with like a 2-year lead up, right? Where we have this idea and we know what device we want to make. And of course we've had Pro 7s in the past, right? So it's not like this is a brand new out of left field kind of product. We've been looking at what we want to bring in for Gen 10. We have a lot of new technology, of course, coming this year with the new GPUs and a whole bunch of new just tech all around. Again, we got the OLED panel, we got updated thermal systems. There's just so much. And my role was basically to work with the team as we kind of took on feedback, looked into the trade-offs that we'd have to do for performance and other things, and then getting his device out at CES and getting hands-on and then work with NVIDIA, all that fun stuff. It's been a journey for sure, but it's definitely worth it. It's a great product.
Awesome. Yeah, it's crazy how far out this stuff goes with the planning because we get so focused on the current stuff in community, and then I'll go talk to you or Mark or somebody, and you guys are talking about something 2 generations away. That feels crazy.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see some of that. Can you talk about this product a little bit in terms of some of the key differences from the past generation, maybe, just since we've been doing the Pro 7 for a bit? What kind of makes this one different from some of the previous ones?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things, especially as we like build any platform, if we take a big step back, we make a lot of gaming PCs, but they're all geared for different kinds of users. So on the competitive side, this is a term that we use a lot, is competitive gamer. You also hear sports is tossed into the mix, but just think like a team-based game that requires skill, right? You have to unify with other people and then do stuff. So Pro 7 is supposed to be that like master class device. So if you're over the level of platinum, you're excellent in competitive gaming, you need the best of the best and you want to get the best performance. This is your desktop replacement that you should be looking at. And then Pro 5, which is coming out a little bit later this quarter, is right below that. So if you're someone who's on the rise, right? Maybe you're working through the ranking, bronze, silver, gold, whatever. That's more your speed, like in great performance under the hood with all the other additional bells and whistles, right? So Pro 7 is meant to be that kind of top tier. So with this device, because we're so over-indexed on desktop replacement performance, you see a lot of that attention to detail has gone into that. Of course, we have the latest Intel Ultra processors, which are the fact that we're finally getting NPUs on gaming laptops is pretty dope. Of course, NVIDIA, right? Everything's NVIDIA. These are shipping with the 5090s and 5080s, and they're really incredible cards. The performance is just unreal. And of course, everything is going the realm of AI. So a lot of really fantastic additions there. But then, of course, to cool all of that, we had to really rethink our entire thermal logic, right? Normally we had back in the day vents coming out everywhere. So this is the first generation where we basically deployed 2 different solutions. So we have a vapor chamber built into 3 things. One, we have a massive vapor chamber on this. Second, you'll notice that you, again, I think it's your left hand, right? On the side there, you'll see that there's no vents, right? And that's because the air is blowing away from you. And that's a concession we had to make because with that higher thermal ceiling, we have to play with the port selection quite a bit. So you have this awesome like intake system on the bottom, you're redirecting air out the back, and that comes from the hyper chamber, which is something we introduced last year. So it's like a vacuum seal. So actually, if you take your palm, there, you do the vent thing, you do your thing. But
Yeah, I was going to show the vents. That's one of the biggest changes for sure. I haven't shown the back of it yet, actually. So a lot of vents are here, you guys can see. And then we have the intake on the bottom, like he was saying, which I think that hasn't really changed, but definitely the vent positioning to cool some of that stuff was a big shift from previous generations.
for sure. And the nice thing about this is that back in the day, you would have that hot air blowing on your hands on the right side. And so it solves a couple of those user experience pain points, which we know is always short. But the other thing is, here, Ben, sorry, I'm going to direct you with your hands with my hand model. If you take your middle finger and put it where the power button is, I'm slightly below it.
Yeah.
So right in that whole area is a vapor chamber, basically, or sorry, a hyper chamber. And this is the technology we introduced last year. So it's almost a vacuum seal. So it completely redirects the logic for the thermal system. So because it's sealed and all those key components of the CPU and GPU are there, and those are obviously the hottest components, it basically means that because that chamber is sealed off, we're able to redirect air. And instead of having fans spin out the side, because we sealed off those sides, now they're spinning inward and then pushing air out the back. So if you have a car and you have a turbocharger, it's a very similar logic. We're basically creating a channel for air to dissipate. And that stops an additional thing that we always have a problem with when it comes to high performance units is what I like to call heat seepage. So of course you have these high-end components, you have nothing sealing them off from the rest of the chassis, and that can actually trigger the sensors across the motherboard to go off. And then you have fans moving at inopportune times. It allows us to bifurcate that. And then the thermal system where the battery is located, the SSDs, the memory cards, now those have their own dedicated heat sink as well. And they have a dedicated fan as well. So it's really helping to improve a lot of the thermal performance across all this.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I want to make sure we talked about that because I've definitely seen the feedback from people, but I think knowing the intention behind the cooling specifically with some of these new components that are pretty beefy, it makes more sense in terms of why that was made that way. So I think it's good to know. And there's a lot of good feedback from chat. Chat, by the way, if you guys have questions, feel free to pop some in here and I will try to route those over to Chris throughout here so we get some questions answered. I did see some people saying they do use theirs as a desktop replacement. So definitely aligning with kind of what you said earlier, Chris, with that goal with this series.
No, for sure.
Awesome. Most of you said, I'm assuming that RGB lights are adjustable. Yeah, I haven't done it yet on here, but I imagine, Chris, I think all of our stuff is mainly.
So there's a couple of different things. If you hit function and spacebar, you'll see that there's 6. I don't know what the functions look like on your side, but this will switch between different profiles. So for example, you get the rainbow effect, you have that raindrop effect, and I forget exactly what it's called. Everyone seems to use a different word for it, but when you hit one of the keys and there's like splash effect, we obviously have those as well. And then for me, for example, like right now I'm on a purple kit. So I changed my default to purple basically. So I do that as my, I think, profile 6, I want to say, or profile 1. So you can flex with whatever you, what I love is like, if you work, for example, like you're talking to one guy, he works either at Coca-Cola or some company that had red. And so what he did was he was using a gaming laptop as his work PC, and then he changed the colors to red as well, which I think was like a nice flex, right? Like on brand in every way. And then if you hit the function up and down keys, of course, then you can adjust the brightness so you can go up and down accordingly. And then I'm telling you,
I was looking for that. Oh, that's crazy. I did not know that. It's like I work for Lenovo or something.
The function keys are the key. And then, of course, with function Q, which I think everybody knows, you'll be able to swap between 4 different thermal profiles. So you have your quiet mode, and then you have your balance mode, performance mode, as well as extreme mode. One of the other really cool things this year is we have an AI chip on the motherboard, which I think most people know of, but I think people don't really appreciate what it does. It's basically like an intelligent controller, if I were to kind of frame it. It's going to be looking at the CPU and the GPU, and it's going to power shift between those two. And what's really cool is that it's an AI chip. It's there to kind of learn how the system behaves and then issue different profiles. So before, that was limited to balance mode. So if you're in this white mode, it would act up, but then you could, of course, shift into performance mode and get more raw performance. Now that AI function of power shifting is also available in performance modes. If you're in performance mode, you get, of course, some raw juice there, but then it will also detect what's happening on screen and then react. So CPU intensive tasks versus GPU intensive tasks, it'll shift power accordingly, which is pretty gnarly.
Awesome. Yeah, that's one of the coolest features that I think we have, especially with some of the AI stuff going on this generation. And then there's other AI stuff we can maybe talk about as well. But definitely having some of the optimization is a really cool feature to have baked in there now.
For sure.
A couple quick questions I saw from chat. A lot of questions actually coming in. C-Spark, you said, what's the GPU capability of these? Are they now closer to desktop GPU performance? I don't know if you know any of that off the top of your head, Chris, but we offer 4080, 4090 on this one, I think. Sorry, 50.
Yeah, just for everybody, we offer 5090 and 5080 as well as 5070 Ti. Those are all announced GPUs, so you have the full stack. The really cool thing is that there's a term that you'll see pop around. I see some people are writing GPU equals 175 watt. Absolutely. But it boosts up beyond that. Again, we are able to shift power from the CPU over into the GPUs. Don't know the number off the top of my head. I feel like it was like 220 or something like this, but you can get a really significant boost. Sorry, 175 watt to 200, an additional 25 watt boost there. So that's pretty cool. But also the really fun thing is TOPS, right? So that's like trillions of operations per second or tera operations per second. I don't know. Everybody has a different term for it. But now on the 5090, it's up to 1,824 AI TOPS, which is like absolutely ludicrous. So if you're doing any kind of ray tracing or any, of course, gaming kind of stuff, that is like a huge benefit for those apps. So this is definitely like an AI machine in that way. But of course, there's also other stuff. Like if you're doing any kind of work, schoolwork, STEM work, you're doing render work, even if you're doing game design, all these elements come into play. It's a nice bump up for sure from last year. And then of course you get a nice amount of RAM as well. I think we have 24 GB of GDDR7. So you get a lot of headroom, which is pretty incredible.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate the conversion and some of that stuff as well. I saw somebody ask, I think Bernard on YouTube said, what kind of GPU is in this Legion 7i? This one, I believe, and the one that's up for pre-order today/yesterday is the 5080 config. And I believe some of the others should be coming later this month. So keep an eye on that for the areas that support pre-order. Okay. Some of the other ones I saw a question from Fallen about the giveaway. The giveaway, we actually may look to give away one of these next month because they're on pre-order right now. So I don't have them to give to you guys yet, but we're looking probably for April to give one of these away. There is a Go S up for grabs though this month in Europe, if that's what you're asking about. Then I saw a question on Azure Trio on the price point of this laptop. Chris, do you know off the top of your head what the price point for the pre-order is? I could go find it too if we need to.
I don't, because I don't know off the top of my head just because I work on the global side. So we're operating across 108 countries. I'm always like never really super knowledgeable about that. But yeah, I kind of default to you on this one.
Okay. Yeah, we have a link to that. If you type exclamation point pre-order in the chat, Azure Trio, there will be a link to a page that has links to every regional page. So you can find wherever you're from, basically, you can find that link and then go figure out the price because it varies a little bit by place. Awesome. One big thing too with this gen is the OLED screens. Chris, do you want to talk about that at all in terms of why that was a priority maybe this year?
Oh yeah, no, it's absolutely incredible. Basically, if you go backwards in time a little bit, one of the big questions we always have is on IPS versus OLED. A lot of people were, I think, especially within our own walls, hesitant back in the day on OLED because, again, there are fundamental issues with OLED when you're gaming and there's static elements on screen. Again, we always talk about burn-in and things like this, all that fun stuff. Basically, before we even got to should we do OLED, we need to make sure that will not be an issue. So step one, we have, I think, basically like an AI function. It's basically an anti-flicker and anti-burn-in technology. This runs in the background. You guys will never notice it, but trust me, it's there. And basically what it's doing is it's refreshing the screen to make sure that static elements don't get burned into the screen. Again, it's a thing of the past, to be honest, but it's another precaution we want to take. Again, reliability and long-term benefit is by far the biggest focus for us. That was the first thing that we wanted to conquer. And once we had put that through all of the run of testing within our own R&D department, and then we got the green lights from their side to go implement it, that's when we decided to implement it. So you'll see that across the entire stack. Doesn't matter if it's Legion 5, 7, Pro 5, Pro 7, we got OLEDs across the board. And they're absolutely incredible. It's hard to see when it's on camera, but when we put one next to an IPS display, it just like pops so much more.
Yep.
The big thing, like just to go by the numbers, the contrast ratio goes from 1200 to 1 on previous generation to 1 million to 1. It's like a massive leap forward. So you're going to get a lot of beautiful colors. Things are going to pop for sure. And again, it's just more vivid for any kind of gaming scenario. The second thing, going back to why this product exists, is really meant for competitive gamers, people that are at the higher ranks of whatever team-based game is out there. And the really cool benefit of OLED that people don't talk about enough is that if you have a dark or dim environment within a game, because this is using those true blacks and it's able to contrast really well, people they can't hide, right? So you actually get a visual advantage there, which is something that we think is super fun and cool to explore. And then the third is there's the response time. So back in the day, the response time of the panels was roughly 5 milliseconds. Now it's down to 0.5 milliseconds. So it's insanely. So again, if you're keep coming back to the benefits for competitive gaming and all this fun stuff, it really is giving you as much edge as we could possibly give you outside of going to your ISV or ISC and getting you a new internet connection. But so we're trying to reduce the barrier as much as possible.
Dude, as a competitive gamer, you're really selling me on trying to use this thing for some gaming. No, I will tell you, it is hard to see on the camera because you're looking at it as a picture of a screen, basically. But you can see the shine too. That's one of the big things with OLED. You'll see a little of the reflection coming off here. There is some of that's with the OLED screens, but that just kind of shows the difference you'll see between some of the previous generations and OLED. And we even have OLED, I believe, on the Go 2 as well, Chris.
Yeah, on the Go 2 prototype we showed, that was one of our big pieces of feedback. We had 5 things that we really wanted to address on that. So again, we talked about this a lot at CES, so I'll touch on them very quickly so you guys can understand our process for feedback. So there's basically 5 things on Go 2 that we were super focused on, but one was the OLED panel for sure. That was one resounding piece of feedback we had. So we implemented that in the prototype. And again, we're getting pretty good at OLEDs right now. We've been doing it across the board for a lot of the larger Lenovo portfolio. It's just how it's been greenlit for gaming. I don't know. We're super excited about that. It's such a great quality of life benefit. And there's also like little things like, again, I always talk about the compounding of the whole, but if you have multiple little things that are helping with battery life, and then you put them all together, it tends to improve the overall battery life experience. So that's one other benefit to OLED because it can disable or go super, super dark down to I think like 1 nit or something crazy. I forget what the number was, but it's amazing quality of life benefits for sure.
Yeah, that minimum brightness is actually very useful if you do want to be traveling with it sometimes. I think if you're like in an airplane even or some places where you want to keep it dark, that's a nice feature to have sometimes. for sure.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why again, we talked about it quite a bit, but that's why you guys probably have seen 99.99 watt hours. And so it's such like a weird, like why such a specific number, but that's like the legal limit before you can't take it onto a plane.
Right.
So that's something we always address to that point, right? You should be able to take your gaming laptop with you, and gaming on the plane, maybe not a thing, but you're going to do other stuff.
I've tried it. It's tough, but yeah, the airplane Wi-Fi isn't always the best.
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure.
Okay, some more questions here as well. Think EU will get one too in April. If you're talking about giveaways, guy, yeah, so I'll go ahead and say this. So from our end for community, we're hoping to do like a unified giveaway for North America and Europe for this product in April. It's a work in progress, but stay tuned. Once it's available, we'll work on that. Kane, you asked, where's that wallpaper at? It is on the gaming community as always. This one was designed by Trent actually, and I've seen it all over social media, so I decided to use this for today for the showcase. Shout out Trent. Question, what is the approximate power supply output for the GPU units? Chris, any thoughts on that one off the top of your head?
Not 100% sure. I know we ship it with there's two things. So we ship it with a 400 watt power supply. This is a thin design, or as thin as we can get a 400 watt. So it's meant to give you the full power. You can charge these things with USB Type-C. So for example, like I bring my gaming laptop, I work on a gaming laptop. And so I'll use my small adapter basically to charge it. I'm just doing work stuff. You can get some pretty good performance out of that. But yeah, 4 watts with the power supply.
Awesome. Good stuff. Will there be a version with 5090? I don't think we do AMD for this generation, Amrit. I think it's just Intel as far as I know, at least for the Pro 7. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Chris.
No, so our Pro 7i will only be shipping with Intel CPUs as of today.
Yeah. Awesome. What else do we got here for questions? Let's see. Just going through here.
Sorry. But like, shout out to the wallpaper. I'm very happy that someone asked this because I've also changed it to like my work labs, like wallpapers on this. It's so good.
Yeah, if you guys didn't know, we do new wallpapers every week in the community. I think some maybe even connected to this new gen. We'll see. But there's every Wednesday, you can get a new one in our community site. I think even might be a command for it, !wallpapers. You can check that out if you want to. I saw some of you guys asking for drop and bend and break tests. I'm not going to do those today on the stream. I'll leave those to some of the people who make YouTube channels out of that, because this one is on loaner to me and I do have to send it back before I attempt to break it. So we'll see. I'm sure somebody will do that though, close to the release time. Misplaced, you said, can you install Steam OS on it? I believe so if you'd like to. It won't come out of the factory, but yeah, I think we get that question for both the handhelds and the laptops, which is funny. Okay, what else we got here? Is the pre-order not available in South Asia region? Mainly asking for India, Dubai. No, so this one currently is mainly available for pre-order in North America and Europe, and the Asia Pacific region becoming later this month. So as soon as that happens, we will let you know. Stay tuned on that. Is there a mechanical keyboard on this laptop? Choco, Chris, can you talk about the keyboard on this laptop?
I haven't done anything. So no, it's not mechanical. So actually one of the things that we talk about a lot is mechanical keyboards sound like a good idea on paper. And then if you have a laptop, let's say you bring this to school or you bring it to work or whatever, and then your kid clacketing around, people tend to not enjoy you nearly as much as you think they do. If you're in your house, you've got a headset, of course, that's your prerogative. But we normally avoid implementing mechanical keyboards on laptops. It just doesn't, we find in user experience testing that it's not an enjoyable experience. But what we do is we have our Legion TrueStrike keyboards across our entire lineup. So the history of this is actually pretty cool. Honestly, Lenovo, we own ThinkPad. We are ThinkPad. That's 20 years plus of keyboard engineering. We work with their team very closely. And again, their laptops are made for business. So we're not trying to say it's the same, but they have this great technology called a soft landing switch. That's why when you click on a ThinkPad keyboard, it feels like it's got deeper key travel. It's actually like a little bit of a magic trick because it has a second actuation point that makes you feel like there's more depth to the key. And that's a really great solution. It becomes a very satisfying experience. So about, I want to say like maybe 5-6 years ago, we implemented this on all of our Legion devices. That's where TrueStrike comes from. And then we ran a whole bunch of testing with, you guys may be familiar with a company called UL. They basically are the ones who own the benchmark for FutureMark. And we ran a whole bunch of testing to show how once we implemented this feature from keyboard 1 to keyboard 2, it's like, one, it improved latency. So we got a lot quicker with our keyboards. And then the satisfaction of the key strokes is really nice. This is also where you see this kind of uniform alignment on the overall format of the keyboard. So you see how we have the number pad to the right, we have the B airing key at the bottom. And this was like a lot of testing. And we're not saying that every single person on the planet loves having a numpad. That's the reality. But what we find is that a lot of people, when they have a numpad, it's really hard to go back. It's really hard to kind of get rid of it. So we found that a lot more people have benefited at a 16-inch screen size. Say, give me the number pad. At least I have more functionality there. And then give me a robust typing experience. And so True Strike is it's a lot of fun. It's a great keyboard. I enjoy it a lot, and we know a lot of customers do. So yeah, a little bit of a history lesson on keyboards.
Yeah, I love that story that it comes from ThinkPad. I talk to that all the time when we show these because it's such a cool story to carry that forward from our legacy a little bit. Question from Dark Knight. Will it help me get Celestial and Marvel Rivals? If you're good, maybe. You have to prove it. It's got the specs in there for sure if you want to try it out. Does Lenovo Vantage let that laptop set a 60% battery charge limit to prevent overheating the battery? So one of the big shifts for this generation, I believe, Chris, is the shift to Legion Space from Vantage. Is that right?
That is correct. Vantage is in the rear view. We are now on to Legion Space.
Awesome. So yeah, there are some settings there as well. I can't show Space just yet on here because it gets an early unit, but you do have controls in there for things like that, I believe, with fan and temperature and some of the FNQ settings as well. So typically there are some settings on the overcharge and pass through charging. I believe I'm saying that. I don't know if you know anything more about that, Chris, but we can get into it in the future when we have some space to try out.
No, for sure. It's one of the things to answer the question. Yes, you can put a limit on it. So if you don't want to keep your battery fully charged at 100%, because some people don't, right? Because of the longevity of the battery. Yeah, you can just do that, right? That functionality is still in Legion Space. Anything that you found with Vantage virtually has been just ported over to Space, and we've added a bunch more. It's nuts. So in the future, then that's a great follow-up video or follow-up stream on another day, because there's so many features in Space that offer you a lot of customization and different bells and whistles. Yeah, definitely can customize everything to your heart's content.
Yeah, I'm really excited to check it out. And for those of you who don't know what Legion Space is, maybe this was previously, it is on the Legion Go. That's kind of where it was first introduced. And now it's being introduced to everything for Legion as one unified place. So it should be a familiar experience, whether you're on the go or a desktop or laptop, any of that stuff will be kind of a unified thing. It's very cool. Okay. Not sure if I missed it, but what ports will it come with? Hey, we didn't talk about the ports yet, which is a surprise. Do you want to talk about that really quickly, Chris? Maybe I can show it while we talk about it.
Sure. So this is actually one of the things, again, we were talking about it earlier, that in our view, Legion Pro 7 can function as basically a desktop replacement. Right? So a very good example is if you look at, let's say, the Legion 7, which is meant to be a little bit more mobile. You take it with you. We find that customers also are not plugging Ethernet into those devices. They tend to operate on Wi-Fi, which is why the Wi-Fi card, I think, was updated to Wi-Fi 7 this year. Yeah, as an example. Same thing goes with Pro 7. Like, people are docking this more often than not. So you'll have dedicated Ethernet. We have a full RG45 port. You have audio jacks on the right side, so you can plug in your headphones. And again, a couple of other things is we have the e-shutter button, which of course you have the webcam. It's basically a kill switch. So it'll cut the feeds to your webcam, audio and video. So you'll be truly like off the grid. And then when it comes to, again, quality of life ports, I don't know why we are always kind of asking this question. We always thought that gaming accessory brands would move to USB Type-C instead of USB Type-A, but that hasn't really happened. And we're finding that a lot of users are still using Type-A for whatever, the wireless mouse, keyboard, whatever. So we want to make sure that you have a lot of support there. So you'll find 3 ports for USB Type-A. So it's a 3.2 Gen 1. And then you'll find a couple of Thunderbolt ports or USB Type-C ports, as well as a dedicated HDMI 2.1 jack. Again, especially with this device, we're always trying to make sure that it has full port support. That's a tongue twister, but you get the idea.
Absolutely. Hope you guys saw it okay. It's a little dark. I know I've got the mood lighting in here, but yeah, it's on the sides this time. And we also have, again, the big difference with this generation at the back is that huge RGB light that's customizable as well. So that's, again, goes into some of the cooling differences this generation and having a lot of USB-Cs on the side there. Two USB-Cs and a USB-A, I believe, to work with one Thunderbolt there as well. Awesome. What else we got here for questions? Let me see. Question, are the highest spec units out for pre-order, or will there be a more powerful unit available? Additionally, what are the upgradable components within? Yeah, it's a good question, C-Spork. So the 4080 version is currently out for pre-order. Sorry, I keep saying 40 because I'm so used to that. The 5080 version is out for pre-order. The 5090 version and other versions are coming soon, so stay tuned. As soon as I have more info on that for timing, I'll let you know, but I've heard later this month is likely. In terms of the upgradable components, Chris, do you want to talk about that for what you can swap on here?
Yeah, sure. Again, I think we have a website that's going to be far more helpful, in my opinion, called PSRef. So this is normally ships with all the devices. You can basically scan the QR code and it'll redirect you to your product, and you'll be able to see everything, right? It'll tell you everything end to end about what you can and cannot upgrade or swap out, or component information. For example, is the M.2 2280 or is it 2242 and so on and so forth, like different sizes. So that's going to be obviously like a golden North Star for you. Now, to answer your question, yes, you can upgrade storage. You can swap out memory. We offer a lot of support there. It's on the memory side, it's DDR5 memory. And then on the storage side, we do support 2280 as well as 2242 sizes. So you have some flexibility there. And these products will be shipping with up to 2 terabytes. There's 2 dual slots for that. So you can, again, pick and choose your own adventure there. And when it comes to Wi-Fi, I'm not too sure if the Wi-Fi card can be swapped out. I assume yes, but again, that would be an assumption.
Yeah, so some good points there. And I've never done an actual component swap stream on here. I need to try that at some point. I was a little nervous with the static in my studio, but I would like to try it to do some demos and tutorials like that. So we'll see. Other questions as well. This one's interesting. Fallen asked, how much of performance loss from running games on battery power? Is there a performance loss, or is it just your battery until it runs out, essentially, Chris?
This is one of my favorite questions, because actually this is something that a lot of people I've noticed over my career don't know. And it's like an industry standard. So I'm going to spill the tea a little bit. So when it comes to your performance, when all gaming laptops, because we have dedicated graphics, or any laptop with dedicated graphics, if it's plugged into the wall, it's going to be using every single ounce of TGP it can. So that's how you're going to be able to get those amazing frames. The second you unplug, because your battery will of course drain very quickly if you're on dedicated graphics power, it'll default to the iGPU, right? On the Intel CPU or the AMD integrated graphics. So in this instance, the second you unplug, you will be gaming on the CPU. Okay. You could game on it for sure. What the battery life is on that, not 100% sure, because I know we're still doing some testing on that, but it'd be a very curious experiment to do. So I would encourage you to try it out. But of course, you're not getting 175 watts of graphical power, right? You're getting instead, I think, 55. So just the numbers game, it's going to be at least 1/3 the performance. So just keep in mind. And then also when you're gaming mobile, again, battery life is always a thing. So again, a couple things to keep in mind, but plug into the wall would be my recommendation.
Sure. Always, if you can, for sure. Yeah, I actually didn't know that. So thank you for helping teach us a little bit today. Thanks. X Callie asked, will Legion Space also come to older Legion laptops? I don't believe this is planned, but if you know anything else, Chris, feel free to chime in here.
No, as of now, it's just future forward. So we're focusing on Gen 10 and beyond. It doesn't mean that we haven't discussed going backwards to Gen 9, but I don't think you'll see it go back to Gen 8 or 7 or anything like that. So future forward is the best way to think about it.
Absolutely. Corey, you asked, will the consumer be able to further upgrade the storage or RAM, or are there some components blocking parts? So yeah, we just talked about that. You can definitely upgrade some of those things that you want to. Have you played League on it yet? No, Vinar. I haven't played anything on it yet, to be fair, but hopefully I can soon, because that OLED panel was looking pretty cool. I think we saw one from space. We just talked about that as well. Will we? Okay, I'm trying to read your question here, Amrit. Will the dual monitor Magic Bay accessories work with Legion? I think that's what you're trying to ask here. I'm not super sure on that exact accessory, but if you've used accessories with past Legion products, I would think they should work for this generation as well. Do you know anything about this specific product, Chris? You heard of this?
Oh, no. But it sounds cool.
Yeah. Just checking. Okay. What's the typical lifespan like for this machine? If you guys still doing testing on battery stuff, Chris, I don't know if you have anything you can share on this off the top of your head.
Battery life testing, going back to Legion Space, like this may answer the question, I don't know if it will, but going back to Legion Space, like one of the things we have is we have a smart battery technology. There's probably a cooler name that we have on the marketing side, but it's escaping my mind at the moment. But basically what this is detecting the power cycle of the battery. We do test it for, I think, up to 1,000+ cycles. So that's normally like over average use, maybe like 3-4 years, that we can 100% guarantee that your battery is good to go. No issues. Then, of course, there's other things that you can do as an end user to protect yourself. Again, we were talking about limiting how high the battery can charge and all these different features that, of course, we enable you guys with. You can choose your own adventure there. That way, there's a little bit of flexibility. So out of the box default, this is what you can expect. And then if you want to customize beyond that, based on your use case, go for it. Some people prefer to charge super fast and top everything up to 100. That's their thing. Cool. 2 thumbs up. You do you. So that's kind of how we think about it.
Yeah, it's nice to have that flexible option, because I see, to your point, people want one or the other pretty passionately. So I'm glad we have some options there in space to support that. Okay, chat, I think I've gotten through a lot of the questions here. If I miss one, please feel free to re-ask it, but I've kept looking through it, and that's the most I can find. Chris, thank you for jumping on here today. Again, I'd love to have you back on in the future when we have some of the Fauna units and or Legion Space to go through. We talk through some of those things. I think you've been pretty involved in that as well. But yeah, anything you kind of want to wrap up with in terms of either just the product or Legion marketing in general?
Legion marketing, the banner. No, I really appreciate being invited on. I hope I answered every question in a nice way that chat has enjoyed. And I hope to come back if I get the 2 thumbs up from you guys. I would love to be back and talk more about some of our lovely features, technology, and all sorts of cool stuff that we got going on. Again, we got a lot of stories. There's a lot of history to our young little challenger brand. So more than happy to talk to.
Yeah, I really appreciate you jumping on here. A couple quick fire questions for you guys because I see some of these. C-Spork, yes, you can disable the RGB for office use if you want to. We know that's a big component of Legion in particular. So yeah, just like we showed earlier, some of these, I think there's one built in without the RGB, just like that. So you can do that if you want to use it for the office or for school. France, yes, this is a Pro 7i 2025. This is the Gen 10 that just got for pre-order yesterday. So we're checking it out and talking to Chris about some of the features for you. And I think that was the last couple too that I saw round out the questions here. Chris, man, thank you so much for jumping on. We appreciate your time. And we'll definitely let you know if you have any more questions from the community we can pass your way.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, Ben. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Talk to you soon.